Hey, you're holding down the fort.
Yeah. That's it's for the cameras. That's for the cameras. Oh, you're. Oh. Yeah. I was gonna yell at him. Yes.
Oh, great. Good. Hey. Bravo.
Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Bowman, President and CEO of Wildlife, the nation's leading nonpartisan conservation organization dedicated to protecting, preserving, and restoring our nation's wildlife and the habitat they need to thrive now and for generations to come. I'm especially pleased to be here today to celebrate this week's Endangered Species Day and to be joined by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and Representative Jared Huffman, as well as our supporters, the Endangered Species Coalition and the Sierra Club. Thank you all for making the time to be here today to call attention to the pressing need to protect the Endangered Species Act, our single greatest tool for combating extinction of imperiled and endangered American wildlife. In this Congress alone, there have already been more than 25 attacks on the Endangered Species Act, including a bill by Representative Bruce Westerman that would eviscerate the ESA if passed. If that wasn't enough, the Trump administration is also targeting the ESA through executive orders, rulemaking, and the budget process. For instance, the president's FY26 proposed budget request seeks to destroy the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's Endangered Species Program through a 60% cut in funding. This proposal is indicative of the multifaceted effort underway to undercut this highly effective law, a law that is responsible for 99% of listed species still being with us today. Bipartisan nationwide research commissioned this year by Defenders of Wildlife reveals that 95% of voters support the ESA and 62% strongly support it, with over half of voters thinking the law should be strengthened. While support is strongest among Democratic constituents, Republican voters do not want to see the law weakened either. In short, Americans of all political stripes understand that taking care of our wildlife is taking care of ourselves, and that there's value in saving every species. We simply cannot allow this Congress or the president's wildlife extinction budget and the nation's concerted efforts to save America's impaired wildlife that have been underway since the ESA was approved with overwhelming bipartisan support more than 50 years ago. It is because of those efforts and the wildlife protections provided by the ESA that the bald eagle, peregrine falcon, the California condor, and the humpback whale are among the hundreds of listed species that are still with us today. And we are a better nation because of it. We strongly urge Congress to stand firm against attacks against the ESA and to reject the president's extinction budget. I am now pleased to introduce one of the ESA's fiercest champions, ranking member of the House Natural Resources Committee, Representative Jared Huffman. Thank you.
I am so grateful for Defenders and this incredible coalition that you pulled together, because this is a time when we are going to need to really join forces and fight to protect the Endangered Species Act. It is under attack in a big way, and I'm pleased to be leading that fight in the House Natural Resources Committee. The ESA is near and dear to me. I represent the North Coast of California, and that includes our beloved coastal redwoods that are all over my district. It's an iconic species, of course, but it also sustains 106 threatened and endangered species in redwood country up and down my district. Everything from coho salmon to the northern spotted owl to the Point Reyes mountain beaver, which is, you may not have heard of it. It's coprophagic. You have to look that up, but it's kind of an interesting little feature. Yeah, I had it. We won't go there, Senator. But look, the ESA is about a lot more than just wildlife. Certainly, it is a tool that helps us protect clean air, water, and the natural systems that sustain us, the humans of this planet. And when endangered species start to blink out, it is more than just an ecological loss. It's a warning sign of broader ecological collapse. When Republicans try to gut these protections, they are not just putting wildlife at risk, they are putting people at risk. And the recent legislative and administrative proposals that we've seen are more of a scorched earth attack on wildlife in the ESA than anything certainly I've seen in my 13 years in Congress. They're coming after science-based decision making. They're coming after the rule of law. These are cornerstones of the ESA's success. And just last week in the Natural Resources Committee, in the course of our 13-hour markup, we saw the most extreme environmentally destructive legislation in the history of the Congress advance out of committee on a party line vote. House Republicans included special carve-outs and waivers and special treats for industry friends of theirs. They are trying to circumvent environmental laws in ways that are so extreme and so brazen. And certainly the ESA is part of that. Their mandated offshore leasing in the Gulf gives no consideration at all to the world's most endangered whale that lives only in those waters. There is no ESA compliance required at all for that mandated oil and gas leasing. Chairman Westerman's separate bill, he calls it the ESA Amendment Act of 2025, actually guts many of the ESA's most important provisions. It drastically would reduce protection for imperiled species. Nothing in his bill actually improves our capacity to protect wildlife and to help recover species. Instead, like every proposal that we've seen from this Republican Congress and from the Trump administration, it just seems designed to do the opposite, to just write off species that are threatened or endangered. And our colleagues on the other side of the aisle say that they want to speed up permitting. Well, you wouldn't know that from the way they are gutting the Fish and Wildlife Service, which has lost about 50% of its information for planning and consultation team. Over 400 employees fired nationwide. Now the president's budget proposes a devastating reduction of $37 million to the agency's ESA program. These cuts are causing chaos throughout the agency. They're disrupting recovery efforts, which Republicans say they care about, and they're certainly delaying critical actions to protect species. It's also bad for permitting when there's no one there to answer the phones or to process requests. So this is just bad on every level. It seems that our Republican friends in Congress think that they should just be the ones who call all the shots, to do nothing out there to actually protect habitat, to protect species. And then when a species gets to the point where it's inconvenient for some special interest group, come to Congress and have someone introduce a bill to just write them off, to just allow them to go extinct. And that's what we've seen, these one-offs on individual species, whether it's the long-eared bat or the sage grouse or the prairie chicken, of course, the grizzly and the wolf. And then most recently, a couple of weeks ago, we spent an entire day fighting a Republican attempt to exempt the longfin smelt from ESA protection. And that, of course, in California was a very science-based, deliberative listing decision that they want to simply wipe away because it is politically inconvenient for them. So look, we've got a lot to fight against right now. These attacks on the ESA and broader attacks on our environment and climate action are unlike anything most of us have ever seen. It's going to challenge us to come together, to be strong and unified and take the fight to them. We've tried to do that for our part in the House of Representatives, but I'm certainly really proud to be working with my colleagues here, including a real champion for wildlife and climate action, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, and grateful for you today. This ESA is worth fighting for. And I promise you that my team and I and my House Democratic colleagues are in that fight to protect the ESA every single day. Thanks, folks.
Congressman Huffman, thank you so much for those inspiring words. Next, we are honored to be joined by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, ranking member of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, who is helping to hold the line on the ESA in the Senate. Senator Whitehouse, thank you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the Senate Democrats on the Environment Public Works Committee, and on behalf of all the adorable kids who sent me these letters about endangered species, not just nice letters, but actually drawings, I'm delighted to be here. There is a bug that a wasp lays its little larval eggs in. And when those little wasp larvae grow, they take over the bug. And they steer the bug around to where they want the bug to go. That's an analogy. Republican-controlled Congress is the bug. Fossil fuel industry is the wasp larvae that moved in and now steers the bug around wherever they want it to go. We are also familiar with the analogy of the canary in the coal mine, which began with an actual practice of miners taking canaries down into the coal mine before there were protections for miners, so that when the air got poisonously bad in the coal mine, the canary would keel over first, and the miners would know to head for the exits as fast as they can. That's an analogy too. The wild species of this planet, the remaining wild species of this planet, are the canaries. They tell us how well we're doing at protecting this beautiful planet Earth, what Pope Francis liked to call our common home. We're not doing so well. If you look at all of the biomass of all the remaining wild mammals on the planet Earth, it's 1/9 the biomass just of cattle. So we have really shrunk the wild population of the Earth species. Why would we not want to pay attention to and protect what remains? Well, the reason we would not want to pay attention to and protect what remains is that we're being steered around by the fossil fuel industry, by the polluters who don't care and whose business model might be interrupted just a little bit by having to look out for the protection of God's species on this planet. So it really matters right now that we defend the endangered species of our world. Because guess what? When the world is not livable for them, who's next? We're next. This is our warning system. This is our monitoring system on how badly we are doing taking care of our planet. And the only people who want us not to pay attention to that any longer are the big polluters who are doing the damage. And we're going to fight them tooth and nail because it's the right thing to do, because that larvae should not be steering the bug around, and because so many kids care and we owe them better than we're giving them right now.
Yeah. Spread words and great analogies. I'd like now to introduce my colleague and friend, the Executive Director of the Endangered Species Coalition, Susan Holmes. Come on up.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming today, and a special thank you to Senator Whitehouse and Representative Huffman for those extraordinarily wise words. 51 years ago, Congress wisely passed the Endangered Species Act with overwhelming bipartisan support. Since then, the Endangered Species Act has become the global standard for safeguarding endangered wildlife. Wildly successful and effective, and responsible for recovering many iconic species, such as the green sea turtle, the black-footed ferret, and of course, our national symbol. In fact, 99% of the species protected by the Endangered Species Act are with us today, and on the road to recovery. It is also a law that enjoys broad bipartisan support, with 95% of Americans in recent polls coming around and favoring a strong ESA. The Endangered Species Act was passed because Americans believed then, as they do now, that protecting our wildlife is a moral imperative and a responsibility to future generations. And it protects more than our fellow creatures. It also safeguards our national environmental health and the heart of the American way of life. Yet some politicians in Washington are doing everything they can to eviscerate this law that protects our species. In just 3 months, President Trump has wreaked havoc on environmental protections, including the Endangered Species Act. He's allowed tech billionaire Elon Musk to fire scientists who handle the day-to-day work of protecting endangered species. Numerous new policies favor drilling, mining, logging, while sidelining protections of wildlife. In one blatant attempt to sabotage the ESA, the Trump administration is proposing the destruction of species that the destruction of species habitat would not violate the ESA, despite the fact that habitat loss is the #1 reason that species become endangered. And some politicians in Congress are working to make these abuses permanent by writing them into. Representative Westerman's ESA Amendments Act is chock full of provisions to loosen scientific standards, eliminate life-saving protections, turn the review of industry proposals into a rubber stamp, and ultimately render the Endangered Species Act unable to protect species at all. Bills have also been introduced to sidestep the ESA entirely and would overturn protections for species like the iconic grizzly bear and the great wolf. But you all here are giving me hope. This week, 20 years ago, the United States Senate unanimously created Endangered Species Day to educate the public about the importance of protecting our most endangered species. This week, in wildlife refuges, zoos, botanical gardens, zoos, libraries, churches, and community centers across the country, thousands of people are participating in events to raise awareness about endangered species. Today, I urgently call on members of Congress to join with the majority of Americans who love precious wildlife, to stand up to any and all attempts to protect species back. I would now like to turn this over to my colleague Ben Jealous, the executive director of the Super Bowl.
Well, good afternoon. It is an honor to be here with Senator Sheldon to speak for the kids. Every kid starts out in love with wild things and wild places. It's an honor to be here with a congressman who represents one of the most beautiful parts of our country, the north coast of California, all the way to Oregon. It's an honor to be here with my colleagues in this movement, but most importantly, it's an honor to be here with the activists who surround us, many of whom flew in at their own expense or had friends cobbled together, fellow activists cobbled together just enough to get them here. Because they know that it's the responsibility of the grown-ups to speak for the kids and to speak for the animals and to speak for the wild places and to give voice to the great destruction that we're doing and this bill would do. It's an honor for me to be here with Shruti Bhatnagar, the Vice President for Conservation of the Sierra Club, the volunteer that is elected and chosen to represent all of our millions of members around the country who work every day, not just to fight against a climate crisis, which is a human extinction crisis, but to fight against the 6th great extinction that this planet has known. And unlike the 5 before, this one is caused by us. And at the heart of it is habitat loss. And this president has the temerity to say that destroying habitat should not count as harm. When 1/3 of the species in our nation are at risk, and it's primarily because of habitat loss. We have a choice to make. whether or not as a country we're going to do what we've done so many times before. I think we can all agree that our national bird is majestic, but that majestic bird is only here because the people who sat in the seats of Congress and the Senate then and in the White House decided to listen to the children, decided to listen to the activists who have the temerity to seek to speak for nature and give voice to it in these halls. And we passed the Endangered Species Act. And it allowed us at a time when we thought that bald eagles, and with them pretty much all raptors, were going extinct, to turn the tide and save our national bird. I grew up in the state of California, where we have the California bear that no longer exists. Our flag has an extinct species on it. And I grew up in a town that defined itself by the monarch butterfly. When I was a kid, 25,000 on average would come to overwinter. When I was in college, it was 45,000. Last year, we didn't hit 20. In the Monarch Sanctuary in Pacific Grove, California, called local activists, they said we counted 18. Not 18,000, not 1,800, 18 monarch butterflies. We should be doing more to stop this extinction crisis. We should be doing more to protect the approximately 30% of all species that are at risk. And this president, as you heard it said, has chosen to put the profits of billionaires, the profits of the oil industry above nature itself. I grew up in a little church in that town where we were taught that God's first commandment to humanity was protect the garden. And that's all we're here to say today to Congress. Protect the garden. There's a lot of people in there who claim to be of the same faith as me. But in my little church I grew up in, you weren't allowed to call yourself a Christian if you didn't understand that your word, that God's word to you was to protect the garden. It's the same for Judaism. It's the same for Islam. It's the same for the most popular religions in this country. And again, the Endangered Species Act is how we saved our national. So let's get done with being stuck on stupid. Let's get done with doing the bidding in the fossil fuel industry. And let's get back to doing what makes this country the best place on earth for defending nature. Let's enhance the Endangered Species Act. Let's not do it.
Thank you, man. Those very, very moving words, very inspiring. So, and I just want to say again, thank you to everyone who's been here today to be up on the Hill, make your voice heard. Thanks to all of you. We need to do all we can to protect the Endangered Species Act, everything we can for American wildlife. Again, I want to say thank you to Ben, Susan, Congressman Huffman, Senator Whitehouse, and again, all of you for being here. Please go forth and spread the word that we need to do everything we can to protect our wildlife. Thank you so much.
She can still.
Yeah.